Welcome, everybody. This is MogTalk episode 83. I am here today with wonderful Ethys Asher to talk about casual lore. And you guys might be asking me what casual lore is about. Today, it's kind of one of those topics we debated about, talked a little bit about what we want to do with it. And I figure there's a lot of people who kind of understand what lore is in the game, but they don't really know what lore is in the game. They just kind of have little interesting tidbits. But now we can add on to those little interesting tidbits and make it even more interesting by throwing in little bits of facts that you might be able to relate to with your limited amount of knowledge with lore.
You make that sound so condescending. You're like, all right, we're going to talk about things that you idiots might be able to understand.
Yeah. And for you guys who are unfamiliar with MogTalk, MogTalk is a show about Final Fantasy XIV where we bring the community together to talk about anything from checkerboard racing to savage raiding to lore content, which today we have the wonderful Ethys Asher. And if you guys are not familiar with Ethys Asher, please go ahead and introduce yourself, Ethys. Tell everyone who you are.
I am Ethys Asher. Hi, what's up, everyone? I've been doing lore content for the YubTub for quite a long time, for Final Fantasy XIV in particular. And it's great. It's just one of those worlds that really drew me in, and next minute I'm sort of making videos about it every day. So that's who I am, if you haven't heard of me.
Yeah, pretty cool guy. I met him once. He actually flew out from his Aussie homeland. Aussie homeland to come say hi to me over at FanFest recently. I mean, he wouldn't have came if I didn't go.
That's a slur, right?
Is it?
You're not allowed to say that, Aussie.
Is it a slur? Is it really bad?
Yeah, it's a slur.
I was like, I don't know. Some Aussies are, they might be sensitive to racism. I think that maybe they have a really good, handle on, good politically correct things about racism over there.
It's what our British taskmasters called us.
Oh.
When they sent us out here, they're like, you fucking Aussies. And, ever since we've been salty about it, so.
Yeah.
Isn't lore a tombstone? That's not relevant anymore.
Lore is a tombstone. Yeah, that was relevant back if you want some scrub gear. Come on, guys. Do Alexander normal. Yeah.
Yeah, lore's for scrubs.
We're an elitist show. We only talk about things that are like scripture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scripture show.
Show.
You're right.
They were saying something in chat here that I thought was pretty interesting before the show started when we were playing the Susan Calloway remix. By the way, I feel horrible for not saying this. If you guys were listening to that song before we started, that was Susan Calloway's remix pop version of Answers, which is very good to hear. It was good. I would listen to that at a party any day. Any day. But
if someone invited you to a party.
If somebody invited, you know what? I'm going somewhere after this.
Yeah, where are you going?
I'm gonna go play board games, dude.
You're gonna go play board games?
Yeah. What? You want to fight? And I'm wearing my Ethys shirt, by the way, guys. We had a trading of shirts over at FanFest 2. Ethys has his MogTalk shirt on there. He asked for extra small.
Well, I asked for small.
Extra small. He wanted the smallest
extra
thing.
Small? Is that what I wanted?
Ones that would make his nipples pop out of his shirt.
That's
basically.
true. I want my nipples to pop.
And that shirt does a really good job at it too.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So what someone said during the whole intro part there was, how do you feel at this about being replaced by a lore book, the encyclopedia there?
Oh, geez. All right. So for those of you who don't know, obviously the Encyclopedia Eorzea came out about the same time as the North American Fan Fest. And this has been something that we've been, promised for a while. And I was a little bit reticent. I was a little bit nervous. I was like, holy shit, is this thing going to make me redundant? It makes my job easier in some ways. It makes it harder in other ways. So I love it. Harder in that I have to go sort of above and beyond. And sort of, think of new things to talk about that aren't necessarily in the book or in, far greater depth than appear in that book. But at the same time, like, it's a really good way to centralize all of this knowledge that normally I'd have to go to like several different disparate sources to get at. So I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful book, as you haven't seen it.
No, I haven't bought it yet.
You haven't bought it? That's
no,
shameful.
I was going to get it at FanFest, but I was like, I'd rather do FanFest instead of sit in merch line for 7 hours. So
But you see, the way I thought about FanFest, right, in terms of like the events and stuff like that, I was like, look, I play Final Fantasy 14 like every day when I'm at home. I haven't come to Vegas to fucking play computer games.
No, okay,
So,
gotcha.
So I'm going to stand in line instead.
Well, no, see, I don't want to stand in line either. I want to walk around and I want to talk to people. I want to be like part of, all the community stuff that's happening at that point. And I feel like I did a good job.
The community was in the line. The community was all in the merch line.
Fair enough. The people who needed that merch. I'm just going to buy it online, of course, because I do not ever want to spend 7 hours in line. I just can't think of the last time I did that. Not for anything. But that's all right. We won't harp on that too much. I'm sure that they've already heard it enough, and it's good. We'll stop. So today we're going to be talking, hopefully, in kind of a casual mindset of, hey, you played through the game, you did some lore content, or you did some of the content, and you watched some of the cutscenes. You have an idea of what's happening within the story. But there's some stuff that if you got a little bit more background on, you'd be like, hey, I actually think this is a little bit more awesome than, just the 2 seconds of cutscene I watched while I was trying to click the button to skip it. So, Ethys.
Yes.
We didn't really write down too much for this show. We were just kind of going through it. You said you had a couple ideas of things you wanted to mention. Give me idea number one.
Okay, well, look, I feel like there's a point in people's journeys in Eorzea where the world sort of grabs them. And like you say, they're going through and you're skipping cutscenes and you're just sort of, half concentrating on what's being thrown at you. And then there's something that like grabs you see something or you hear something and you're like, oh, hang on, what's that? And for me, I think that moment really started to happen actually not until the 2.0 endgame, until I got into Wanderer's Palace, and I'm like, wow, this beautiful dungeon, this ancient civilization, what's all this, what's going on here? So I was going to ask you, do you remember, or can you think of some point where the world of Eorzea just like reached out and just like grabbed you by the scrot and was like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, there was a couple of points, and it felt good. A couple of points where I was just playing. When you saw the Tonberry, like if you did some of the Wonder Palace stuff, you saw Tonberries and stuff, and you start to invest a little bit in the lore that happened with them, and that was kind of interesting if you wanted to pay attention to it. There's also a couple parts throughout the story, and you were like, yeah, this is kind of cool. Like the warrior quest, when I was doing that, and I was like, wow, this guy's insane. He gets, this whole rage about him every single time, and they actually invested a little bit of time to tell you about Gorge, right? That's his name. That's how you say it, Gorge?
Yeah. Curious Gorge.
Curious Gorge. And so there's a lot of these little moments, and I was just like, yeah, I'll invest a little bit of time in actually watching this and understanding this, and then I just go back to my normal, like, I'm just going to play the game and level up as fast as I can. When I started to get like super invested into the lore, and I was like, man, I really want to know what's happening in this game, was the coil content.
Absolutely.
Second coil. That's what pulled me in. I'm like, holy shit, this looks kind of epic. What actually happened here? I don't understand what's happening, but I need to go read something. I need to figure out what's actually happening here so I can make some sort of sense of why I'm fighting this lady with a spear and wings that's jumping down at me.
That's interesting actually, because excuse me, because coil operates as a catalyst for a lot of people in suddenly becoming interested in 1.0 content and wanting to go back and find out what happened in 1.0. So do you want to talk about coil? I mean, coil is the place that sort of grabs most people.
Yeah.
So we know about Dalamud. We know about all the story of A Realm Reborn is centralized around, this terrible, terrible thing that happened that destroyed this terrible, terrible game that happened, and we subsequently got a good game out of it. But we know the sort of basics of that. We know, the Empire, they're bad. They cast meteor and they pulled down this ancient moon, which turns out to actually be some kind of satellite and smash up the land with it and stuff. And Then, of course, we find out that, there was this ancient 5,000-year-old civilization. And this is a really common theme, honestly, for all Final Fantasy games, is having like this old, industrialized technocratic empire
Right.
that sort of, failed because of their hubris, and everyone thereafter has to pay for the sins of these ancient peoples.
Right. And that's real quick, so everyone can be kind of clarified on what that ancient civilization is. If you don't know for some reason, it's most of the 24-man content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So all the Crystal Tower series is associated with the Allergans. Binding Coil, of course. We've got quite a few dungeons, like Azazlar, for instance. Everything happening up in Azazlar. So yeah, that's basically look. Final Fantasy XIV is all about, and this is true of all Final Fantasy games, it's about breaking cycles. And in Eorzea, we've had, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, these cycles of these empires, building up to the point where they're overtaken with, avarice and arrogance, and they self-destruct. And all of the ruins that are left around the land are left by, these kinds of people. And we're still having to, deal with those problems 5,000 years later, and that's pretty much the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I kind of grasp too when you're going through it. Although, if you're not paying attention, you still kind of don't even grasp that. You're just like, you're paying attention to, I guess, the Scions, right? And you're like, what's going on with all these guys? And the Scions don't really point back too much to the ancient civilization, do they? Or am I completely confused there?
Yeah, they kind of do. So the Scions. Okay, let's talk about the way the Scions were formed. So we mostly know who Louis Soir was, right? Mm-hmm. So Louis Soir is this guy from this civilization of scholars called Charlaine. And they have these histories and these prophecies about the way that the world has constantly, been on this cycle of, building up, then something terrible happening and everything being, leveled, everything going back to dust and then having to build up again and again and again. So coming up towards the end of the 6th Astral Era, which is what we were in prior to 2.0, this Louis Soir guy realized that we were coming up to that climax once again. So he formed this group called the Circle of Knowing, which is what the Scions now are, is Thancred, Y'shtola, Papalymo, Ida. And they were basically a group of people that were going to try to prevent this terrible calamity from happening. Based on the fact they know it's happened in a certain way so many times before. Mm-hmm. And that was largely what 1.0 was about, particularly, when we were getting through to 1.23 and we met Nael Van Darnus, and we know that Nael Van Darnus is trying to pull Dalmor down and basically as a meteor. And we're trying to prevent that. So what we end up doing, rather than being able to prevent it, is sort of softening the blow to some extent. And rather than completely destroying every civilization in the world like these calamities normally do, we're able to sort of soften the blow a bit, particularly, when Louis Soir sacrifices himself in a sense to Phoenix and, defeats Bahamut for, the temporary time that he does so. So the Scions of the Seventh Dawn are very much based on trying to prevent the mistakes of the past from repeating themselves.
Right.
That's their whole MO.
So they actually are pretty damn involved in it. They just, when you're going through the story, you don't think about this kind of stuff when you're going through it. At least not the recent story. Or I didn't think about it. I was like, hey, I got to defeat the Garlean Empire. That's all I'm thinking about. It's like, these guys are coming over here and trying to beat the hell out of me and trying to take over, and I need to stop them from trying to take over. That's kind of what the grasp I got from the story when I was going through everything. And then the second part is, there's fucking dragons. They're going to kill me now. They got these eyes, and there's some crazy stuff going on over there of politics and everything. And it's crazy because Final Fantasy has a crap ton of politics you have to deal with throughout the game in the story. I mean, with the king and everything else, and then you have the Garleans, and then you have all the other nations trying to work together, and you have to be heavily involved with all that stuff in order to get through the game.
That's true, but again, just you mentioned the Garlands and the Dragons. We understand so much of their politics just again by going back and looking at ancient Alec, this
Hmm.
civilization which got too big for its boots and ended up self-destructing. Um, the Garlands are modeling themselves on the Allegans. They developed their major technical revolution by reverse engineering these ancient Allegan technologies, and they sort of revere the Allegans. They talk in the same way. They have the same kind of philosophies as the Allegans, and that frightens the shit out of everyone in this modern era because we know about the Allegans. We know all the horrible things that they did.
Right.
So the thing that sort of
Well, we don't know. I don't know
no,
what the horrible.
that's the thing.
Right.
But the thing is, what motivates the scions, what motivates the city states, and what motivates your character, ultimately, whether you're aware it or not, is this knowledge of this ancient civilization and the way that Garlemald is going down the exact same path. Now, the dragons, similarly, the dragons' animosity for man began with the Allegans and the way that the Allegans invaded the southern continent of Mericidia, which is where Bahamut and Tiamat lived. Mm-hmm. And they killed Bahamut, they killed a whole bunch of dragons, and then they actually developed the technology. And you'll see it everywhere in Coil and Azazlar. They developed the technology to actually enslave and sort of brainwash dragons and bend them to their will. So that's where the whole mistrust between dragon and a man starts. And obviously that's compounded by the stuff that we hear about in Heaven's Ward about the King Thornton and the Knights 12 murdering Ratatoska and eating her eyes, and all of that is more wood for the fire. But again, the problems of our era are very much grounded in these sort of ancient animosities, these ancient conflicts that have just been perpetuated over and over and over.
Right. Okay. So we're gonna take a couple steps backwards, a little bit more. Mm-hmm. We dove a little bit. Not too bad. I think we were doing pretty good. I think we're doing pretty good so far. Like, I'm doing my best to like keep us on level at the same time while we're going through this, so we don't lose too many people that are just like, I get it. What the fuck are we talking about? Dragon Ball Z now? It's just like out of nowhere. But by the way, guys, in chat, while we're having any kind of conversation, if you guys want to know anything, please ask questions. Please talk in the chat as well.
I'm happy to clarify on anything if you guys have questions.
Yeah, anything that you guys want to hear and talk about, especially ERP, feel free to ask. Feel free to ask and let us know. Because there's a lot of different things we can talk about on this show. It's kind of an open floor. I'm going to be talking about things I'm kind of interested in because, again, a lot of times that you're playing the game, you're focusing on just getting to the end game so you can raid. And by the way, real quick tangent, end game wise, how are you doing, buddy? You've already cleared A12S?
No, L12S progression. We've had most of our people from our static, myself included, obviously, have been off doing like cons and stuff like that. So we've barely had a week where we've had everyone. But yeah, no, we're making good progress. I'm way into my rating.
Okay. Yeah, we're still on A11S. We're about to clear it, and like this is going right now. Our rate is at 2 days a week. So
all right, that's pretty good for 2 days a week.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
It's been rough, especially with all the stuff going on in my life. And man, we're not going to talk about it because it's not the QQ moment for Frosty TV here. But
that'll come later.
It'll come later. You play on Tonberry? Am I right? Okay. So I don't know if that's just me being racist because I think all Australians play on Tonberry because I think they do. But
they should be.
Yeah, because that's where they all should be. Because most
that's
people.
Where we all congregate.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I'm there.
Yeah, and so everybody. Oh, Ethys, he's the famous Aussie. But okay,
out of the 3 Australians that play Final Fantasy.
There's a couple FCs I think out there on Tonberry.
Yeah. No, there are quite a few.
I gotcha. All right, so the one little tangent that I'll bring up about role playing is that a lot of people do. You haven't had a lot of experience with ERP, have you? I'm guessing. Yeah, knowing about it, hearing people talk about it, and everything else.
Not like firsthand, but Are we seriously gonna? Okay, okay.
Have conversation. So, I
All
mean, it
right.
happens
So
in the game. I mean, I don't know
yeah,
how
yeah,
much
yeah,
people
yeah,
like invest
yeah,
time into it,
yeah, yeah.
but
Look, I know as a fact that there is a, I don't know where it is. I haven't seen it, but I know that there's a Ethys Merry slice fiction floating around somewhere.
is there really?
Yeah.
Do you have a link?
No, I just
Can
said
you
I
find a
don't have
link?
a
Can you
link.
find a link?
No, probably. So no,
Okay.
I'm not involved in ERP, but I think that, and Frosty, let's be real, there's probably stuff about you as well. It's like
Oh.
we're all indirectly involved. We're all complicit.
Oh, okay. Stuff about me. Was it created by you? Is that how you know it's actually
Yeah,
out there? Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Couldn't
I
find
just
any stuff about you, so I had to write it myself.
fair enough. Okay, so let's bring it back to real lore. Every once in a while, I might pop out and just start talking about that a little bit here, because it's just an interesting concept that people go out there and they do this stuff. But then again, you think about like sexual stuff, and everyone's going to find something to be
Yeah.
weird and awkward. Well, not weird. Okay, I don't want to say weird. I want to say they have things that tickle their fantasies. Fantasies. Okay.
Tickle that gooch.
Yeah. Oh, okay. See, look, I was doing good, but you just did it. All right. So going back, we were talking about like there's all this ancient things that happen in the game, and they build up into what we're doing constantly in all the story, but we just don't see it. There's a lot of background stuff that's happening. Right now, we're about to enter into Stormblood, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so in Stormblood, a lot of that's going back to the Alamegans. And so that's still based on the same ancient lore stuff that will eventually collide, I'm assuming. There's nothing that we really know that might be added into what we don't already know with lore going in there, is there?
What do you know? Again, as a casual player, someone who's sort of got a passing interest in the lore, what do you know about Alamigo and how that might inform what we're going in there for?
Now, I have a slight advantage because I have done research on this before. I have read like a summary of all the 1.0 stuff, so I have like somewhat of an idea because I had to do some sort of work in going into it.
Okay.
But from what I understand is that Alamigo is a resistance against the Garleans. That's pretty much it that I have. Is that they're a resistance against the Garleans, and it's taken over right now, right? And we're trying to get it back. And that's pretty much what I know. I don't really know too much more than that. I just know that the Garleans are a bunch of assholes, and we're trying to stop them from being assholes.
Well, we're going to have a real problem because they've actually been controlling Alamigo for 20 years now, and a whole generation has grown up under Garlean occupation. So it's not like they're all necessarily subjugated against their will. It's the Alamegan resistance is the Alamegans that are living in our part of Eorzea that managed to get out. So yeah, you're right. Garlemald, obviously, they invaded Alamigo, like I say, 20 years ago, but it happened immediately after a civil war there. And the civil war is a pretty important thing that's going to come up an awful lot. So we'll even go back a little bit further than that.
Okay.
Alamigo 100 years ago was considered like the sort of primary military power in Eorzea. They controlled a lot of trade routes because they're nestled up in the northeast. There, they control like the land routes into Aldenard, being the sort of central continent. We're on the western continent. So they were very wealthy. They had a great deal of military prowess. And once we started relying more on sea trade through Limsa Lominsa, they were not too happy about the fact that they were losing all this income, and they actually invaded Gridania. And there was this great big war called the Autumn War, at the end of which the Eorzean alliance formed. So Ishgard actually got involved, and this is even in the middle of the Dragon Song War, and we all know that like Ishgard, they won't get involved in anything, but they were this concerned about it. So Ishgard, Uldar, Limsa Lominsa, they all came into Gridania and pushed Alamigo back, and at that point, they sort of, made all these treaties and stuff to make sure that no one could, get ahead of anyone else. But as a result of that, once Alamigo started having this internal war, this civil war, none of the other nations were interested because those guys are a bunch of dicks, right? They don't want to have anything to do with that. They can sort their own problems out. So what we didn't realize was that this civil war was being manipulated and orchestrated by Garlemald, and that the king at the time, this guy called Theodoric, the king of Ruin, basically imploded his own state by going to war with the Fist of Ralga, which is the sect of monks, which are very, very powerful.
Is that why there's two monks in that trailer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just making sure.
So yeah. So they're basically extinct. So he took them out, and that was like the most of his military force. And then he started killing, everyone in the royal family who had a claim to the throne, and just murdered, millions and millions of people. At which point the Garleans just strode in and said, all right, we're here now. What's up? What's interesting about the Alamegan resistance, right, is that a lot of the resistance members were actually members of the rebel faction during the Civil War. So they have a history of resistance that's actually much, much older than the occupation of Alamigo itself. And they are aligned with the monks and the Fist of Ralga, and this more sort of spiritual side of Alamigo, this side that worships Ralga, the god of destruction. And that's why we're seeing, that statue that we're fighting on. They're fighting on the palm of that statue, the two monks.
Yeah, two monks.
That's a statue of Ralga. Where they're fighting is sort of this sanctuary to this god that Alamegans sort of abandoned and turned their back on even before the invasion of Garlemald. So it seems that the remnants of the people that worshipped Ralga are the sort of the core and the heart of the resistance.
Right. Okay. How bad are you going to feel? Just cut you off real quick. How bad are you going to feel when you find out that was actually a dancer?
It's not a dancer.
So you think there's no way that they could have played into the storyline that, hey, now monks are going to upgrade into dancers?
What, the dance is going to be an advanced class?
Yeah.
Monk.
No, not completely advanced. It's just going to be the summoner of pugilists. All right.
It's going to be the summoner of pugilists. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Look, they've said so many times that.
What if they go back?
Away with the class system.
What if they go back, man?
They're not. Look. Okay. It's using Fist of Wind. Okay. It's using Snap Punch. It's using Featherfoot.
Okay. And then that could all be stuff that's cross-class from, whatever. We make it work.
No.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Let me say this. People think that when we say #2monks, we're saying there's no way you're going to get a dancer in the expansion. There's a perfectly good chance you might get a dancer in the expansion. In fact, there's even a tiny little possible hint in the law book. The law book mentions Raubon, who obviously came from Alamigo. It said that a lot of his success in the Colosseum was due to his mastery of the Alamegan blade dancing techniques. Okay,
so dancer was probably what was going on there.
It's something.
You guys heard it here first. Ethys is finally falling back and admitting it.
It's two monks. I'm just saying that the fact that it's two monks doesn't exclude them from being dancers.
Okay, but when we find out that Ida actually turned into a dancer.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you agree with me that it's Ida?
I agree as Ida because, it completely makes sense. Why wouldn't it not be Ida?
Well, there's a few rebuttals to it.
Okay. Long hair, is that it? Is that why?
Not so much the long hair, but the lack of a visible tattoo on the neck.
It's called makeup.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, it's
called makeup. It's called jewelry.
Yeah, you gotta hide it because if you don't hide it, then maybe
it's probably a fake tattoo to begin with.
Yeah, just wash it off.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Come on.
Right. So we can meet in the middle. We can agree that it's Ida, even if you still think that it's a dancer.
Yeah. Come on. All right. I know what classes are going to be there. I was told by a secret source that it's going to be samurai and it's going to be a red mage. Done.
Mm-hmm.
My secret source is myself. So. I know these things.
The secret source was Yoshi P's dressing.
Yeah, no, it's it's obvious it's going to be red mage. It's kind of weird that like he went back and forth about it, and I think that maybe this entire time when he was like making all these little things, like saying, "Oh, what about blue mage?" Like in the last anniversary thing, like all this stuff was just kind of to push off a little bit and say, "Oh, is there a possibility to hype up conversation so people were talking about the game in some way, in some sort, and so it would build more interest in the game." So it all makes sense to me that it's going to be red mage. Of course, it's going to be red mage. The other one's going to be samurai. Just because I mean, I don't know what else they could do. I mean, it's probably going to be...
Because you want samurai.
No, it's going to be a melee job. It's not going to be a tank. It's going to be a melee samurai.
Yeah, I hope so.
I mean, it's a balance. It would add a balance to everything.
Look, I hope so. Again, it's just that we haven't had any real, I guess, clear hints from like a lore perspective that samurai is something that exists in Alamigo.
Right.
I mean, I can name you jobs that we know for certain exist in Final Fantasy 14 that we haven't got yet. One of them being Puppet Master. Puppet Master does exist. Puppet Master's
too advanced. That's too advanced of a job. I can't imagine.
No, I don't think we're going to see it in 4.0. I don't know if we'll see it at all. All I'm saying is that we know that there are puppet masters in Heidel, and we know that they exist.
Are there other fairies in lore?
Are there other fairies in lore?
Yeah, fairies that... I don't know where Goku came. Like, you're thinking about fairies with... he's hoping there's more for scholars than just Eos. And Celine.
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that.
Have you ever... Is there anything like with Eos and Celine that comes up in lore at all? Is it just like...
Not so much. It's more that one of them is the sort of sun aspect, the other is the moon aspect. So it's basically like
Pokemon.
It's one creature. Well, you know...
Okay, sorry. I'm doing my best to throw you off. Keep going. Yeah.
So you know how with all ether we have an astral aspect and we have an umbral aspect.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So the fairy is one creature. Now I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right. Eos is the sort of astral aspect of it, and Celine is the umbral aspect. That's all there really is to it.
Okay. I got it.
It's just two different poles of the same entity.
Very good. There's nothing with carbuncles that you could pull out of it. It's the same thing, though, right? Because there's going to be more than one carbuncle, I'm sure.
Oh, you can. Oh, you can have as many bloody carbuncles as you want. So a carbuncle is basically an ethereal entity that you've created from some kind of gemstone. And you know how summoners and arcanists, they're all about using this complicated sort of mathematics and geometry and stuff to form spells. Well, they do a similar thing with these stones. Is that the composition of a stone will form a carbuncle that has certain traits, certain abilities. So the emerald carbuncle, the emerald carbuncle, I believe, is mostly using like wind aspected spells and stuff like that, right?
Right.
That's because.
I'm thinking about that. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's because the emerald itself is a gemstone that's aspected heavily towards the element of wind. Mm-hmm. So when we get things like what's Alphino's latest one? It's the onyx carbuncle. Yeah. The onyx carbuncle. So he's basically finding or creating more and more complicated stones that will create that you can produce carbuncles with different qualities. So that's the kind of experimenting that he's doing. Carbuncles are quite different from fairies. That's how they work.
So sorry, we completely I ruined your train of thought earlier with what you were saying because I had comments coming from chat that I really wanted to.
No. That's fine. That's fine.
Was there anything else you wanted to add to what you were saying, or can I just completely skip over what you were saying?
I don't even remember what it was, to be honest. We can keep moving.
Sorry to those that were really invested in whatever Ethys was saying.
I have such a terrible short-term memory. It's like if you get me off my train, it's gone.
Oh, it's gone. It's gonna happen so much.
That's all right.
So we're gonna do some questions real quick that we had coming out of chat. And again, guys, this is kind of just a casual conversation about lore. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll go and jump into it. And one of the first questions that I don't understand why it's being asked, but maybe people who are more familiar with what's going on with the Ethys life that I might have just completely missed out is how's your Nordic coming along? Oh, wait a minute, you're learning Nordic?
No. I think we actually talked about this last time I was on the show. There's again obviously in Heaven's Ward we've got a lot of names being taken from Nordic. Particularly Reisvelga, Nidhogg, and Tosca. And I know that whenever I sort of produce Nordic terms and stuff like that in videos, there's a couple of Germanic people listening that are like, Ethys, you need to work on your Nordic. And I'm like, no, I don't.
No, okay.
No, I really,
yeah.
Nah, I don't have time for that.
Yeah. There's only so much time in the world. I mean, you're already like investing so much time in just figuring out the lore and making sense of it and, building upon it and stuff.
I mean, obviously, like I've studied sort of medieval Icelandic, but not the language itself. And for people who don't know, I'm sure most people do. Most of the names, most of the concepts, most of everything we see in Final Fantasy XIV is inspired by and taken from real world mythologies. And the one that has been most salient, most pertinent for Heaven's Ward has, of course, been the old Icelandic tradition.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe did he ever come out at Koji ever come out and say maybe why that's inspired so much, or is he just like, it is what it is?
It's because there's lots of dragon names.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're getting away from dragons. I would assume that we're going to take a break from dragons going into the next one.
Yeah. And exactly. And since we're moving away from dragons and towards something else, we're going to be probably borrowing from another mythology.
Which one do you think it's going to be?
We're already seeing there's quite a sort of Middle Eastern vibe to the Almegans. And to a lot of their kind of art and classical infrastructure we've seen so far. So I'm expecting to see quite a bit of, Mesopotamian and Babylonian and stuff like that.
Okay. I'd be fine with that. That's pretty interesting to actually, if you invested any time in that.
Yeah, for sure.
You'd be really interested. I think anyone wants to spend some time in that, you would... You'd be happy at the end of it. You wouldn't be upset that you did it.
Yeah.
So, okay. So Goka here, wonderful Goka. He's one of my best friends, man. I like that guy a lot. He might not know, he might not feel the same way or know that, but yeah, no, he's one of my best friends. He was asking a question here. What do the other beastmen think of Allegans?
What do the other beastmen think of Allegans?
I guess that's. Do you understand that question? Because I kind of don't understand that question.
Okay. I understand that question. So, and that's a really interesting question. Now, most of the beastmen, they either don't know or they don't seem to know about the Allegans. There are a few who do or should, particularly the Ixali who were made by the Allegans. The Ixal, so those funny birdmen people we've been seeing a fair bit of them in Zelfatolbs, one of our expert dungeons at the moment. They worship Garuda. They were actually chimeras created by the Allegans as this sort of mobile airborne strike force. And that's something that we realized when we first went to Azazlar and we did the Fractal Continuum, which is one of the final dungeons in the 2.0 in the 3.0 storyline. We saw their sort of primitive form, their sort of original form, where they're flying. It's before they lost their wings, they were called the Ixalian. Now, what has happened is the Ixali after the fall of Alleg have obviously survived, and their memories of this command structure have sort of remained, and they've transformed in this mythology. So Garuda was originally the name of their general. Garuda was the Allegan general that commanded the Ixalion. So her status as a god is sort of a distant memory of theirs, being commanded by her. So they say in their mythology that, the goddess Garuda, they lived up with her on this floating island, and they watched, all the evil happening down on the ground, starting to sort of spread and threaten the heavens. And so Garuda sent the exile down to the land to sort of purge the land of evil. So they feel like they have this ancient mission ordained by this god, which actually turns out to be this ancient Allagan general, and they think that they are on Earth to sort of cleanse the world of evil, and that when they're done, they might be let back to their, their heavenly paradise, which is, of course, in reality, Azazla. So the Ixali, they don't realize this yet. I think there's a chance that we're going to, and we should confront this at some point, but they don't realize that yet. So they don't directly know about the Allagans, but at the same time, they also treat an Allagan as their god. Now, the other example I can think of is the Gigas. We've seen them in Copperbell mines as the Hecaton Kires. They're those giants that were being used by the Thorn dynasty of Uldar as slaves in the mines. Mm-hmm. We also see a lot of them around Coerthas and around Mordona. Now, they lived up in Ablathia's Spine, which is that northern sort of mountainous region that we start to see a little bit of.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. I was like, you got to, right. I'm thinking about, you got to explain almost everything you say.
Yeah, I'm explaining. Yeah. So Ablathia's Spine, when we go to the Dravanian forelands and that, and we see, those massive mountains, Solmal obviously being one of them, being the highest mountain. That's all part of Ablathia's Spine, which is this sort of strip of mountains that goes right across Eorzea's north. Right. Now, the Gigas are originally from there. We see them in Mordona because when the Crystal Tower was uncovered, so after Dalamud falls, all these ancient Allagan ruins are sort of uncovered by, the explosions and the cracks that are made in the lands. And the Crystal Tower coming up was one of those. And the Gigas have come down from Ablathia's Spine, seeing the Crystal Tower, because they treat that as an object of reverence. And they actually carry like these little statuettes and these little talismans of the Crystal Tower, and they're coming to Mordona to worship the Crystal Tower.
And so they're carrying statues?
Yeah, there's actually leaves, guild leaves, in Mordona from 2.0, where you kill Gigas and you're collecting these little statuettes they have of the Crystal Tower they're carrying around with them. So what I've always sort of construed from that is, well, we know they created the Ixali, to do one particular task. We also know that Amon from the Crystal Tower used like bits of Sephiroth to sort of make Allagan people huge. And it seems very, very likely that the Gigas were actually, a labor force that were created to build the Crystal Tower. And once again, they've got this sort of memory embedded of this thing, of this structure. And when they see it again, they're sort of compelled to it for some reason. So I think there's something very similar going on there as with the Ixali. And we don't know the relationship between them and other beast tribes, but honestly, it wouldn't be particularly surprising if you find out in the future that a lot of the other beast tribes either have relationships with or were even, products of these ancient Allagans.
Okay, so we are not leaving in, this off to question that I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. We're not doubting that there's a possibility that almost most of the beast tribes could have been created.
Well,
which ones do we know for sure that are like not created? They're just natural beast tribes that Mughals, I guess, right? No, none of them.
Yeah, we know Mughals are older than Allag. We know that for certain. But other than that, we don't really know. I mean, everything that was alive in this world 5,000 years ago would have been almost definitely under Allagan subjugation. So, there's a very good chance that unless these beast tribes are all less than 5,000 years old, which again is a possibility, that they will have some relationship with the Allagans, whether they remember it or not.
Okay. Well, shit. We weren't created by the Allagans, were we?
That depends who we are.
Okay, Rose.
Rose? No, I
Rogadins.
don't
Yeah.
think so. I don't
Okay.
think so. Look, again, it's
Yeah.
possible. So the deal with Sephiroth, right? As we know, when we fight Sephiroth, he's got this ability to make himself freaking massive.
Hmm.
And that's like his whole MO. He makes himself huge. He can make other things huge. The Allagans were like, oh man, this guy can make shit huge. So when they capture him, they sort of, took the juice out of him and they started putting it in themselves. And that's why we see in the Crystal Tower, that's why we see all these Allagans that are so freaking huge.
Right.
There's actually, a lore explanation for that being like, well, they've been taking Sephiroth juice. So, I mean, it's possible. It's perfectly possible, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if we find out way down the track that Rogadins were created by, just being like humans that were injected with Sephiroth juice. Like,
How are you not like taking this in some sort of lewd like fashion right now? I don't know if like you're like taking people's juice and giving people juice, and you did a pretty good job. I think you knew what you were doing. I kind of have
thanks, bro.
I think you had an idea what you were doing there.
Thanks, man.
So, all right, well, cool. We'll get off that real quick. We'll go to this next question here from That Be Starred Oni. ARF. What is ARF?
Ethereal chemical, etherochemical research facility.
Oh, okay.
Got it there. Got it the third time.
There we go. Contains some interesting elements. I have two questions. One, what's with the cloned thaumaturges and conjurers? Did Alec have access to these magics before the civilizations that mastered them? Second, was the Sphinx boss containing or scanning us as a potential weapon? And can we anticipate clones of ourselves on mass production scale as a result?
Oh,
This is a pretty intense question here. So first part is what's with the
thaumaturges
cloned
and conjurers.
Yeah. So what's with that?
Okay. Well, there's two answers to that question. The first one, which is I think the one that you're more directly asking, is why did Alec have thaumaturges and conjurers when we believe that thaumaturgy was developed by Uldar and conjurers were developed by Gridania, right? Well, I think that's a label that we're giving them because they're wielding similar magics in a similar way. I don't know whether the Allagans would have called them, thaumaturges and conjurers. We just look at them, we see them doing the same kind of stuff and wielding magic in the same kind of way, so that's what we call them. Conjurers, at sort of the baseline, conjurers are magic users that draw ether from the world around them and channel that into spells. Whereas thaumaturges are magic users that use the ether within their own body to produce spells. And that's why we have, a lot of black mages, destroying themselves and setting themselves on fire and stuff like that, because they get a little bit overambitious with that. Now, the clones themselves, I don't know if you remember, Frosty, and obviously a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have done the Crystal Tower series, but there are two characters we run into in the Crystal Tower series named Une and Doga.
Right.
Who turn
I kind
out
of
to be,
vaguely remember.
And they turn out to be clones of the royal family. The royal family being the only people that can reactivate the Crystal Tower because they have, the royal
family of
Alec.
Of Alec. Okay, just making sure.
Of Alec, of ancient Alec. Yeah.
All right.
So Amon, who's the guy in the big hat and the robes and all that we fight as the third boss in Circus Tower, he. Towards the end of Alec, he started experimenting with cloning because he wanted to resurrect Zande, who was the first emperor. And what he was doing was experimenting with members of the royal family and cloning them. So he took Une and Doga, who were members of the royal family, and he cloned them en masse, like over and over and over and over again. And started with, these pretty mindless sort of automatons. And his clones gradually got like more and more and more and more sophisticated.
Which is the ones that you're killing as like little ads and bosses in.
Yeah, exactly. So all those thaumaturges and conjurers that we see are actually clones of these two Allagan members of the royal house, whom Amon just had such a surplus of copies of that he was like, all right, I'll put some here, put some there. Yeah. Fuck it. You can have some Dogas, you can have some Ones, whatever. got plenty to go around. So that's what they are.
Okay. And we slaughter them. Right.
And we slaughter them. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the second question was about the Sphinx, right?
So, Alec have access to these magic before civilizations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sort of. It was like the cloning thaumaturges and conjurers, and did the Allegan have access to the magics before civilizations that mastered them?
Yeah. So I kind of explained that already in that while it's not going to be exactly the same thing as our conjuring and our thaumaturgy, it's the fact that we're observing that they're wielding magic in a particular way, and we're like, oh, that's basically X, that's basically Y.
Now, did this stuff exist before the Alec? Because there's times before the Alec, right?
Yeah. Absolutely, magic was developed before Alec.
So we don't really. And a question to kind of build off this before we go to the second one is that we don't really see much before the Alec. We don't do much before Alec, right? Like that's like our focus in lore and history is Alec. There's stuff before it.
Yeah, there is stuff before it, but Alec fell 5,000 years ago. That was when it fell. It was an empire that lasted for at least 1,000 years. So I want you to think back like 6,000 years. Think of any ruins that could possibly be standing on Earth after 6,000 years. There's nothing.
Right.
The oldest ruins that we can find are. It's uncommon enough that we find stuff that's 2,000 years old that isn't completely obliterated.
Right.
So the reason why we don't see or engage with stuff that's much older than that is because it's older than 6,000 fucking years. Like, what do you expect there to be?
Okay, so it's just all destroyed and we don't have anything really on it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alec, for some reason, they stood the test of time, and that's stuff that we can touch and research.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. Fair enough. All right. I got my question out of the way. Second part of this is, was the Sphinx boss scanning us as a potential weapon?
Right. So one of the main functions of the Etherochemical Research Facility was to produce weapons specifically to mobilize against the southern state of Mericidia and the dragons down there in Bahamut and stuff like that. Now the Sphinx that we fight and the way do you remember this boss, Frosty? I think it's the first boss of the Etherochemical Research Facility. It starts as a Sphinx and it turns itself into a cobra. It turns itself. It sort of transforms a couple of times through its different phases, right?
Why can't I remember this boss? I thought the first one was like the Minotaur, or was that the second one?
No. The Minotaur is the second one, I believe.
God, I haven't done it in so long.
Yeah, neither have I. Anyway, I do know the boss you're talking about, and I'm sure that most people listening probably know what we're talking about.
Right.
So what's happening there effectively is in the sort of original, Allegan function of the place, is that weapons would come off a production line and they'd put it in front of this thing, and this thing would act as a way to sort of test it against various forms. And that's why it changes through these various forms. So it's testing you as a combatant against, different kinds of adversaries. And that's why it says that when we defeat it, that our test result is extraordinary, and that the subject is approved for mass production. It's basically saying, all right, this thing that just fought me, it's fucking awesome. You guys need to make a shitload more of this.
Now I remember why I don't remember that dungeon at all, because it wasn't even like a daily thing that you could do, right? It was just like a story mode. Right?
Yeah, it was a story mode, but if you have done your animal weapon, it's something you would have run a shitload of times.
Right, but I didn't care about it that much. Okay, so that's probably why.
And Eludi's right, by the way. Minotaur is in the fractal continuum.
Okay,
not
so
in the research.
That's why I remember Minotaur a little bit more, because I actually did that a lot.
Yeah, the fractal continuum, you would have done that a lot for your relads.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm making no sense at all. I'm trying to bring it back together and make some more sense here. I didn't know that tidbit. I didn't know that little fact here about that whole dungeon. I had an idea of what was going on there, but that's actually really interesting to hear. And I wish... and this is why the encyclopedia doesn't roll you out at this. Because there are these little things that a lot of us are not going to know, and I feel like sometimes we just want to sit down and listen to it. And I feel like you do a good job of understanding it all and voicing it out to us. So There you go, Ethys. A book does not equal elimination of Ethys.
Yeah, because no one wants to fucking read.
Yeah, fuck. Reading's like
People want to be read too.
Exactly. All right. And again, seriously, maybe I will produce that idea where you come on the show, and then I'll convince Zeno to come on the show, and then you'll say something about the lore, and then he'll translate it into his own Zeno fashion, and let everybody know what's up. One day, man, we'll work it out.
Talk about warrior lore.
Warrior lore. I'm sure he'd be like all over that. Because you know it's funny, Zeno doesn't pay attention to any lore, any story.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, he is completely past it. But he likes to write.
Sure.
I don't know if you knew that, but Zeno likes to write. He cares about story and stuff like this, but he doesn't actively participate within the story in the game. So, but let's go into this next question. Tiro, maybe 233. Ask the question. Well, this is how it's phrased. I'm just gonna read it word for word. What is the supposed lore of the Galligan Luminous Surcoat on the tank contest?
All right, so there was a tank. I'm sure you remember there was like a tank like gear design contest, right?
Was this for FanFest or
this was before FanFest?
Okay,
this was a little while ago. It would have been maybe 6 months ago. The one that won it was called the Allergan Luminous Surcoat. So it was something that I can't even remember who designed it, but it was an awesome design, and whoever was designing it was trying to design it in a way that would sort of fit in with Allergan lore, right? Mm-hmm. And they actually did like a write-up about, how it would work and how it would fit in, which I did read a while ago. It was a long time ago. For better or worse, I think, I'm not sure who said it. It was either Koji or Yoshi P said it, that they weren't going to necessarily include that lore, but they were going to try to tie it in somewhere. They were going to make it fit within the Allergan lore. So I can't really answer that question. We'll have to see, what happens when it comes out. But there will be something to it.
See, and now I feel bad because I remember this a little bit. I do remember in some capacity that they did have a contest on gear. Mm-hmm. But just like it completely bypassed me, like the details of it, just because I didn't have the time for it. And so that's another depressing thing about where I'm not going to QQ a little bit. So we're going to go to the next question. Hayo Rinks, I think. Will we? I don't know if I want to ask this one.
I'll go on.
Will we ever see? I can't say the name right, so I feel even worse. Yulguri, the ninja. Yugiri. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yugiri again, or Essie will just kind of, take her out of the story. Is this related to any kind of lore? I don't know. I mean, we're kind of that's a sensitive subject, I think, right?
No, I don't know. You're right that we haven't seen much of Yugiri recently. She sort of appears every now and then. I think the last time we really had much to do with her was when we were rescuing Ralbon from Halatali, where Ilbert was keeping him. Look. Yugiri and the whole Doman refugee thing, that's a setup for an expansion that's going to be coming down the track somewhere. I don't know if it's going to be 5.0, I don't know if it's going to be 6.0, but obviously they've wanted to slip in a couple of little Chekhov's guns here and there, and give us, get us thinking about and give us some reason to be moving beyond the borders of Eorzea and getting ourselves involved with issues in the Far East, in Doma. Now, if we just did that like on a whim one day, we were just like, oh well, we dealt with Eorzea's problems. Let's go see what's happening way over here. That would be kind of silly. So Yugiri, yeah, I mean she'll be coming and going every now and then, but at one point in future she will play a very, very important role. I have no doubt of that.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to get rid of the character. I can't think that they're just going to get rid of her because of all the crazy stuff that happened behind scenes.
Of course not.
We'll just probably letting it cool down too, Probably need to give it some cooldown time and not invest too much into it at the moment. But real quick, how big is the world? Like we know this much, right? We know this little circle of our issues and everything. How big do we have to explore? How much room do we have to explore in this world?
So the map we've seen of Eorzea, Eorzea covers the continent of Aldenard and its sort of surrounding islands and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Then we have the central continent of Ilzabad, which is where Garlan is native to, where most of the Hures are native to. And then we have this eastern continent of Othard, which, is the Far East, contains places like Doma. Mm-hmm. Now, these, for the longest time, we've thought of as like the three major continents, and they're all ostensibly connected, and we kind of think of that as being like the whole world. But recently, we've been learning about way down to the south. We've also got this continent called Mericidia. Way off to the west, we've got the New World. We've got this massive mostly empty ocean in the north called the Northern Wastes, or the Far Wastes or something, which is where the Charlanes come from, which is where Azelent is, which is where the Rogaine seawolves are originally from. It has all these, these frozen islands and stuff up there. So our map, what we've seen, is, I'd say maybe an eighth, maybe a tenth of the size of the world.
Right. So we have no reason to go to the moon yet.
No, not for a long time.
Okay. Don't need to go off world. We're not running out of room. Okay.
I mean, we might, right. Get
to
the moon anytime, but we don't need to.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. We have another question here from Sai Built. Maybe. Where do you think 4.0 will be taking the most inspiration from? We kind of went over that a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah, we did kind of we did kind of go over that a little bit. It's hard to say. So Alamigo does take a little bit of Germanic influence, again in the same way that Heaven's Ward has been. Particularly in like their naming conventions of the Highlanders and stuff like that. However, aesthetically, it does seem that we're going to be seeing a lot of very, Mesopotamian, Sumerian, ancient Middle Eastern kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Scimitars. We're going to see scimitars. Yeah. We're going to see a lot of scimitars.
Yeah, we're going to see scimitars. Yeah, fucking yeah.
Okay, why not? We'll do it. So, is there a question I just kind of thought of? Is there like a area or bit of the world that you're like, hey, I want to see this fleshed out and developed, and I want us to go there, and this is the part of the world I'm the most excited about actually going and being part of the game?
The part of the world that I'm most excited about? Oh, geez, there's a lot of parts that I'm excited about. So I reckon the obvious one would have to be Mericidia. Again, it's the southern nation, which was the last to fall to Allig. They resisted Allig for a very long time. And that's largely in part due to the fact that that Bahamut and Tiamat were there. Okay. And their horde of dragons were there. However, they got completely annihilated. The Mericidian dragons are, as far as we know, they're extinct. But we also had, coming from there, we had the Warring Triad, and we had the people that worshipped them. We had this ancient city of these united peoples that worshipped Sophia. Mm-hmm. We had this ancient race of these humanoid tree-like beings who worshipped Sephiroth, who may well still be there. We have this ancient race of centaurs that worshipped Zavan, which again may still be there, their descendants. The Mikote, originally from Mericidia. And we know now that Mericidia is this incredibly hostile place that basically no one has been to and returned alive. And it seems like a really fascinating place to go and visit, go explore, because modern scholars know less about Mericidia than they know about anywhere else in the world. Okay. So that really fascinates me. The other ones, obviously, it's going to be really interesting to see the Garland capital and see the rest of Ilzabad. I know a lot of people are going to be really excited about seeing Doma and the Far East because it's going to be like just weeb shit everywhere. And
Okay, fair enough.
I know a lot of you guys fucking love that. I want to see Eslandt, which I mentioned just a couple of moments ago, which is where the Rogaden Seawolf was originally from. And they basically described that as it's basically Iceland. So it is going to be, culturally very much Nordic. So I'm excited to see that. There's so many places, but I'd say, yeah, definitely Mare City is at the top of my list.
So do you think Mare City is going to be like the last place that we go?
No, I
Final Fantasy 18's coming out, and we're gonna like play in that MMO now.
I hope not. Look, I hope not. Again, we got nothing really to spurn us on our way down there. But I don't know. I hope not.
It feels like
I do hope not.
Ending
Yeah,
place.
it does. Like the way they describe it, it does feel like a very sort of high end zone. But we'll see.
Okay. Major Douche. He wanted to know why Ishgard draw on French naming conventions.
Why do Ishgard draw on French naming conventions? Well, that is because Ishgard is sort of very much modeled after sort of middle-age European. It's very Gothic in their architecture and their design. So there's a lot of that, and there's also the fact that just Elezen in general are stereotypically they're supposed to be this very sort of elegant, foreign, and I guess that the good people at Square Enix just thought that the French encapsulated what the sort of French stereotype of being these very graceful but also arrogant and xenophobic kind of peoples. Again, talking about the stereotype.
Yeah, we're not saying anything about French people.
We're not talking about French people,
yeah.
but that's what they wanted to encapsulate in the aesthetic of the Elezen in general and the Ishgardians in particular. So that was the direction they went with it.
Okay, fair enough. I wish they kind of had. Never mind. I'm good. I was going to say something about Monty Python for some reason because I remembered some skits with them and the French and everything else, and I was like, that would be pretty interesting. But nah, we're good. We're good. So I'm going to take a break from questions for a second here. We have a few more questions here, but I'm going to ask you another thing with that, but just about the lore in the game and kind of how things are turning out and part of the story and everything else. So do we think the reason, and we're going to go back to Two Monks, do we think the reason that Ida has hidden her face so much has anything to do with maybe her upbringing and raising and everything else?
Definitely. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. So Ida, it's something that I've speculated for the longest time, but we have had confirmation that she is Alamegan, that her father was involved in the rebellion. Again, well, we don't know if it's her real father or adopted father or someone that she just wants people to think is her father. But anyway, people believe that her father was involved in the rebellion against King Theodoric, and Ida herself was involved in the Alamegan resistance for a while before she was picked up by Papalimo and taken to Charlene.
Now, why was she picked up by?
Well, that's the question. Okay. Is that so? We know the Charlanes. They educate people who are very gifted, very intelligent, very gifted in the use of ether and history and science. And one thing that we've always known, with relative confidence, is that Ida is not one of those people. Is that she was given this Charlene education. She was offered this Charlene education. She was brought under Louis Soir's wing in the Circle of Knowing. And the Circle of Knowing, mind you, is supposed to be the best and brightest of the Charlanes. Again, which Ida, I do not think really qualifies. Are we calling Ida dumb right now?
Is that what you're trying to dance around? Calling Ida dumb?
Look,
okay.
Yeah. I've been called out on that before, and I know a lot of people get salty about that. But
okay.
she's not made of the same stuff as the Charlens.
Okay.
So I've always suspected that she was taken and given their protection for political reasons.
Okay.
And her status as a Charlene, as part of the Circle of Knowing, as one of the Scions, is as much a sort of gesture of political asylum as anything else. So I think that she's either related to the royal line,
okay,
of Alamigo, or something of equivalent import. So she's going to be very, very, very important. Mark my words, moving into 4.0, she's going to be absolutely pivotal.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. I can't see that not happening. Like, what other character is going to be a main character for 4.0?
Well, another one, and this might be a spoiler for people. Not really. So you know Vidargelt. Vidargelt, the monk.
Mm-hmm.
He's
kind of like, hold on, let me try.
He's the monk that's involved in the monk job quest. He is.
Oh, that's why I don't know so much. Okay.
Up until like the level 52 quest, we believe him to be the last surviving monk in the whole world. The Fist of Ralga, the king of Alamigo, burned their temples and murdered the whole lot of them as part of the Civil War.
Right.
He's the one surviving.
Is he going to be our Estinian, is what you're saying?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what we found out recently. So Theodoric, in his madness, he started purging the royal line. He killed his own children. He killed his brothers. He killed his cousins. He killed his nephews. He killed anyone that could have any possible claim to the throne. There was only one survivor of the royal line, which was someone who the Queen rescued. Was a young son called Theodred, and she hid him from the king by basically orphaning him off to the monks and hid him in one of these temples. So he grew up in one of these temples. So what we've learned from the encyclopedia, and what we'll be learning in 3.5, no doubt, is that Vidargelt is actually that son, that nephew. I think is he's the nephew. He's actually that nephew. He's the last surviving member known of the royal house. So he's going to play a very important part. Whether there's a relation, like a blood relation between him and Ida, I'm not sure yet. I suspect there may well be. But yeah, basically Vidargelt is probably going to play a very similar role to Estinian moving into 4.0.
And that was kind of interesting when they did that too, because I never played the Dragoon job quest, so I didn't know who Estinian was really until I went through that whole job quest. But it was kind of interesting. They're just like, yeah, we're going to pull this character from one of the roles, the main role of this next expansion, and we're going to make him a big part of the story. And now they're doing monks, why wouldn't they do the same thing, right?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Again, because before we went to Ishgard, most everything we knew about Ishgard was through doing Dragoon stuff. Obviously doing stuff in Kurthus, but largely through doing Dragoon stuff. Most of what we know about Alamigo is through doing monk stuff. Yeah. And, it's like,
are you
it's
excited?
The monk expansion.
Are you excited?
It's all about the monks.
Are you excited about that? Do you think, monks, awesome, expansion?
Yeah, absolutely. The monk has always been my favorite job quest in terms of like the lore reveals and stuff like that. You learn more about the history of Eorzea from doing the monk job quest than you do from pretty much any other in-game source.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, because the monk job quest for Realm Reborn is about going around to all these ancient battle sites in order to open your chakra, because there's been violence, there's been fights, there's been deaths on these sites, and the quest giver is actually a scholar who is a former Alamegan who's accompanying you around to these sites, and as you're going to them, he's explaining to you, what happened here and why it happened and how it happened and when it happened. So every single one of those A Realm Reborn monk job quests give you this huge slice of Eorzean history about a particular, very salient and very pivotal conflict.
Okay.
So they're awesome. If you want to know more about Eorzean lore, like I say, go level your monk. Holy shit.
My monk's like level 50, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think I just didn't pay attention to it a lot when I was leveling up.
Well,
I mean,
keep leveling it because there's plenty of stuff post 50 for it as well.
Okay. Because I don't know. I was just going through the jobs. I'm like, I need to go through this. I can't really sit around and watch this stuff.
Yeah,
It's
and
kinda
honestly,
sad.
my first time leveling, we're talking like way back in 2013. I was doing a lot of that as well. Like I was reading it, but it wasn't really like sinking in. I was like, oh, that's cool. It's only when you go back and do it, the second and third time, and obviously now whenever I do, I'm like taking notes.
Right.
That you really kind of get your teeth into it. But that's the thing. That's I think that's one of the sort of challenges for casual players in terms of getting invested in lore is because, like I say, the world doesn't often grab you and sort of get you invested until you spent quite a lot of time in it, and then there'll suddenly be something where you're like, oh, holy shit! And at that point, because of all this stuff that you've already kind of just I guess, glanced over and haven't really like absorbed properly, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, well, I'm interested in lore now, but holy shit, like, where do I even fucking start? There's so much shit here.
Yeah, it gets rough, man. And
yeah, so that's what leveling alts is about for me. When you level an alt, and I'm sure most people do at some point, pay attention to the dialogue.
Yeah,
just do it.
I mean, if you want to play the game and enjoy it, and you're not trying to race through, sure, that's great. That's what you should be doing.
With it. Yeah, absolutely.
But if not, then just watch the show, and hopefully we'll enlighten you a little bit, right?
Right.
All right. So here's another question from Bro Lar. Do you think Alstay could or would summon Phoenix?
Do I think Alize could or would summon Phoenix?
Yeah.
Could. Now you see, that's a really difficult one. The Eggies that we summon are Eggies who of primals that people still worship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you create a primal by worshiping this idea, and by worshiping this idea, it sort of forces a coalescence of essence into a soul, and that exists. That's a thing that exists. That's a thing that you draw on in order to create your Eggie. Mm-hmm. Once people stop worshiping that thing dissipates. It ceases to exist, as far as we know. Okay. So, for example, we couldn't summon a Sephiroth primal, even though we've fought Sephiroth, even though we've been subjected to that essence, because as far as we know, all of his worshippers are deceased, and that soul, that nugget of Sephiroth no longer exists.
But that's not true, right? Because we have Eggy Glamours coming.
Yeah, well, we have Eggy Glamours coming, but are we going to get an Eggy Glamour Sephiroth? I don't know.
They said it's a possibility.
They said it's a possibility.
They talked about it. Yeah.
And if they give us a Sephiroth one, then they're going to have to say, hey, there's actually people that are still alive that worship Sephiroth, whether they're in the Azazlar containment or whether they're alive in Mericidia. It's going to be much easier doing things like, the Ramu Eggy and the Leviathan Eggy, because those are, beast races that are still currently worshiping those primals, so that primal's essence is still held together by prayer. Now, the question with Phoenix is Phoenix was produced by Louis Swab by the desperation of the people on Cartano when they saw the seal fail. Mm-hmm. And they've gone, oh shit, the realm's going to be destroyed. And that desperation and that hope took the form of Phoenix. So whether or not Alize would be capable of summoning a Phoenix Eggy relies on whether or not people still worship or will or hold in their heart, the idea and the concept of Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's number one, and number two is obviously developing, the skills of the summoner and learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Which isn't beyond Alize. I mean, she's said that her whole journey has been about trying to master every discipline of magic.
Right.
So if anyone can do it, she can.
Okay. Sorry, my phone went crazy. Okay. So I think that I think they could find a way to make her summon Phoenix if it really came down to it and they want to make a really cool scene or something. She would do it.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. And Sibyl, what you said, yeah, Dreadwent trance is a thing. Trances work slightly differently, where you're using like the residual ether that's left an imprint on your own essence. And you're sort of like using that like a template. So you're channeling ambient ether through that, and it's creating this form. So you may or may not be able to do that with things like Sephiroth, even though there's no worshippers.
Okay. Fair enough. We believe you, Ethys. We don't think you're bullshitting us. Okay. So Shady Grove wanted to know how many continents were on Hydaelyn? It's not Hydaelyn. Hydaelyn's a guy.
How many continents are on Hydaelyn? So Hydaelyn's our planet.
Oh, it's okay. So it's the. Oh yeah,
so
that's the
many,
god. Yeah, okay, I got it.
So as far as we know of continents, we've got the three major continents. The one we live on is Aldenard. Then we've got Ilzabad directly to our northeast, which is where the Gharlean Empire originates from. And then further east, we've got Othard, which is what we refer to as the Far East. Then we have the New World, which is effectively the Americas. That makes 4. Then we've got Mercia to the south. That makes 5. So we've got those 5. We've got a whole bunch of small islands around the place. You know, we've got the Ciudades, makes up these chains of islands. We've got, we know there's a bunch of other islands in the South Seas. We've got Thavnair between us and the Far East. We've got Charlene and Eslanes and all these little islands in the north. So as far as we know, there are 5 land masses that I would describe as continents.
Okay.
Beyond that, we don't know.
All right. Next question. Jingulus. I think that's how you say your name. Alamigo has been occupied for decades already, and none of the grand companies have done a thing to help, probably because of the sheer amount of Garleans. What is your theory as to why and how we'll suddenly be heading there to liberate it in 4.0?
Look, there's a few reasons why we haven't done anything for it. One, again, is because the sheer number of Garleans is just like an impossible force for an Eorzea that has not been united, that has still been fractured. The other is that we've been dealing with our own problems. We've been dealing, we've all had these primals and shit to deal with, right? So, we've been fractured, we've been distracted. Thirdly is because fuck those guys, because a century ago they tried to invade us and they're scumbags and we don't like them. Now you're right that we do need a catalyst that's going to make us sort of more motivated to go in there. The first one is that the Dragonsong War is finished, that Ishgard has joined the Eorzean Alliance, and Ishgard has an incredibly powerful military. Like, incredibly. They've been forged by, the fires of battle for 1,000 years. And they could seriously fuck with the Garleans. Like, they could offer some real problems. So, again, we're united. We're not fractured anymore. A lot of the primal problems of the local nations, they've been resolved. They were starting to escalate with the Warriors of Darkness, and the Warriors of Darkness trying to escalate the primal problem. Well, hey, guess what? We've dealt with the Warriors of Darkness. So that is going to sort of take a sideline for the time being. It's not such a big issue. Obviously, we still got the Warring Triad to sort out. That's another thing. But that's our own problem. That's got nothing to do with the nations. So you're right that we do need another catalyst, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Now, we know that with the defeat of Gaius Van Belsar, who, for the record, was a pragmatist, he took Alamigo again by sort of manipulating the outcome of the Civil War and basically just marched in and took the place without any bloodshed whatsoever. And Belsar always thought of himself as, a father of the peoples that he conquered and subjugated. And that was the way he treated Alamegans, and that's the way he sort of intended to treat all of Eorzeans, and that's why he helped us to to basically undermine Nail Vandanis when Nail was trying to use Meteor. Belsar was feeding us information because he doesn't want to destroy Eorzea. He wants to save us.
Right.
He thinks that we're these lost sheep, and he's the shepherd that's coming along to steer us all the right way. Now we know that there's a new legatus in charge of Alamigo, right? And I think that this is going to be the source of our escalation. Now, the reason why the Meteor project went ahead, the reason why Belsar was so adamant about wiping out the beast races as opposed to the human races, he didn't want to kill us, but he wanted to commit like a complete genocide against all the beast races. He was all about that. It's because they summon primals. It's because they have the capacity, have the knowledge to summon primals. Well, the Garlanes recently have seen at least one man-made primal. They fought Shiva. They fought Shiva recently. Secondly, we know there are parties that have tried and will probably try again to summon Ralga, the god of destruction, who's the traditional patron deity of Alamigo. My suspicion is that this new legatus is going to see us basically wielding these powers that they thought only the beast tribes are capable of. And he's going to say, all right, you know what? We can't have any of this. And he's going to go like basically full genocide on Eorzea. He's going to force our hand. He's going to go on the offensive. And then this, newly united Eorzea is going to be forced to push back.
Okay. No, that makes sense. Now we're all beast tribes.
Fucking basically.
Savages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Yojobo, another awesome person who's been on the show a few times here. A few times, I mean like 9 or 10 times. He was asking about, I think, Ida earlier, this is a little bit ago, saying, isn't she a red mage now? Not Ida, Alistair. Isn't she a red mage? Yeah, due to the recent main story quest?
Look, short answer, yes. Basically, obviously, her reveal, where she pulls the ethereal blade out of her book is, a massive, teaser and sort of hype up for red mage. What she's doing, I don't think we should expect that to necessarily be the way that Red Mage operates. She's doing her own unique thing. Now, I want you to think about Y'shtola, for instance. Y'shtola, she calls herself a scholar. All the Charlanes, they call themselves scholars. That's what they are as far as they're concerned. She wields a white mage weapon, and she uses astro skills, So all the Charlanes, all the Scions, they sort of have like a mixed bag of tricks from various different jobs and stuff like that. So Alize, she's using the weapon of a red mage. She's using probably some of the animations of a red mage. That doesn't mean that our red mage, the way we play it, we're going to need to be like an arcanist and we're going to have to like pull an ethereal blade out of a book. No, I don't think so. I think we're probably just going to be using regular blades, to be honest. We're probably going to be doing something more like what we see Ilberd doing in Before the Fall, the way we see him using his blade. But yes, Alize does seem to be a red mage, but not necessarily the same kind of red mage that we're going to be.
Fair enough.
If that makes any sense. I hope that
makes sense.
The question. Anyway.
They're special in their own way, so I can.
And Sybil's right. Thangrid was a paladin stancing bard with a knife who also used some rogue skills. I don't know. He a lot of people think when they think ninja being teased, they think of what was it? It was 2.2, right? Through the Maelstrom, where we're fighting the Sahagins, and we got Yugiri. Yeah. And then, Thangrid picks up the other knife and he starts doing like ninja skills. We're like, oh shit, ninja hype. Well, the thing is, Thangrid used Fan of Knives in 1.0.
Yeah. He
was using rogue skills in 1.0. So it's been hype for a really long time. So he was a bard who was using paladin stances and skills with a knife and throwing in the occasional rogue and ninja skill right back from 1.0. So that's just what the Scions do. That's what they do.
He plays a lot of different jobs, man. He has ults.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And they don't have to switch their job crystals because they don't have any job crystals. They just cross-class a whole bunch of shit on their hotbar.
Yeah. They're that guy that joins in as a gladiator.
Yeah, as a gladiator with cross-class fucking, I don't know,
Raging
piercing
Strikes or
talons.
something? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cross-class Blizzard 2.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. Okay. So I'm actually going to take this a little bit off Final Fantasy 14 for a second. I don't know. Have you been invested into 15 at all recently?
Not really, dude. Not really. I don't have a PS4.
You don't have a PS4? Have you like even looked into it at all?
Yeah, like I've been looking at the trailers and stuff. I think I watched the first episode of Brotherhood. I find it interesting. Here's the thing: I'm not, and this might surprise some people. I'm not like a lifelong Final Fantasy fanatic.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. That's fair.
In Australia, we did not get a single SNES Final Fantasy release.
Really?
Yeah. So the first Final Fantasy game that was released that I was able to play was Final Fantasy VIII on PS1.
You didn't even get 7?
No, I never played again because it wasn't hyped up. It wasn't a thing here. Like it just wasn't. Like we didn't have that culture like you guys had from the early childhood being like hyped about Final Fantasy. So the first Final Fantasy I played was Final Fantasy VIII, and I loved it. I played Final Fantasy X a lot as well. I loved that. And in recent years, obviously, I've gone back with Game Boy Advance releases and DS releases, and I've played like all the early ones. But I don't have that. I guess I don't have that sort of grounding as like Final Fantasy being my childhood thing. My childhood thing was Elder Scrolls. My fascination with Final Fantasy 14 came purely out of playing Final Fantasy 14. And a lot of my fascination with the Final Fantasy series has been about, looking back once I started playing Final Fantasy 14 and looking back at all the, in sort of retrospect at all the other games. So yeah, I don't have a PS4. I love a PS4. If I had a PS4, I'd probably be way hyped about Final Fantasy 15.
I bought the PS4 Pro recently.
Yeah.
Because I was going to buy 15 when it comes out later this month.
Right. Awesome. Okay.
So I mean, it seems like there's a lot of interesting story that could be involved with that whole series. Like,
yeah, of course.
It
lot of the same stuff that I do with Final Fantasy 14 could be done with Final Fantasy 15, and who knows? Maybe one day I'll get invested in it.
It wouldn't be a bad idea. Maybe you could do it. Mm. But okay, we won't go into that then. I was just wondering if you were already like kind of jumping a little bit into its story and everything. I'm guessing you didn't watch Kingsglaive. No,
I haven't seen Kingsglaive yet.
It's another one of those Final Fantasy movies. So you're like, there's some pretty bad stuff in this movie. It's not like the best movie in the world, but hey, it's a Final Fantasy movie. It's Aaron Paul. Aaron Paul's voicing. Oh my god.
I feel exactly the same way about Advent Children. I'm like, this is cool, but this is probably the worst paced film I've seen in my whole life.
Yeah, there's some pretty bad stuff in there, and I don't know. I really don't know how this happens either. I don't know how like. Maybe the expectations are too high for Final Fantasy content when it comes to movies and everything else, because like the games, great.
I think it's more because you get people who are used to writing for games like as a platform. Film operates in a very different way at a very, very different pace, and they're just not. Like they're just reaching outside their comfort zone, I think. Anyway, obviously they like employ a lot of really great filmmakers and stuff to do them, but the direction in them is still coming from like we're going to direct this like we direct a Final Fantasy cutscene, and anyway, they're fun. They're just not good films.
They need to bring in like some really crazy director and all these like super big film makers and just do a Final Fantasy movie the right way. I really want to see that, because I don't think there's been one Final Fantasy movie out there you're like, wow, this is a movie everyone should watch, whether you watch Final Fantasy or not. This is a great movie. They don't have one of those.
No, they don't.
And I feel like that would really make them a lot of money. I feel like they could go over there, overproduce the hell out of a really good Final Fantasy movie, and then put all of their games on sale. And some sort of acceptable platform.
They don't seem to do the movies. They don't seem to do the movies to make money. They do them for marketing.
Well, yeah, they do them for fan service too, right?
Yeah.
they want to say, hey, look, Cloud's in there. He's jumping around. He's throwing his sword around. So now we have.
But it's the thing. Advent Children came out when we had things like Crisis Core and like Dirge of Cerberus and stuff like that, and a lot of it was about getting people to buy those games.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt about it, anyway. And obviously, Kingsglaive is exactly the same thing. It's part of the massive hype machine that is the Final Fantasy 15 release, and that was like the primary purpose of it.
And it showed in like one theater for one day per city.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it was really there to. I don't know, like World of Warcraft. It wasn't a great movie. Did you see that movie?
No,
okay.
I didn't.
But it was a fan movie. You'd watch it and be like, I like World of Warcraft. I just watched a movie about it. I'm okay with it, It wasn't like it changed my life or anything, but... so I don't know. I have high hopes that maybe one day they could do something like that, but it's okay.
Yeah, high hopes, low expectations.
Yeah. Do you dive a lot into a lot of different movies and like other stories besides Final Fantasy 14? Are you like really inspired by another content creator out there? Who is that? Content creator as in someone who makes movies and video games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm massively into Elder Scrolls. The Elder Scrolls lore was like one of my first loves growing up playing Daggerfall. Other than that, I'm hugely into the Star Wars universe. Again, that's something like I remember when I would have been 5 years old when they did like the cinematic re-release of the original trilogy. Mm-hmm. And my old man took me to see, over the course of 3 weekends, he took me to see like each of the original trilogy films. And from that point, I just absolutely fell in love with the Star Wars franchise and never looked back. So there's those two, and Lord of the Rings. I'm massively
Lord of the Rings
nerd.
Star Wars are the two that you can easily just like jump into and it'd be like something you talk about with everyone else.
Yeah,
and it's just like
they are very approachable.
Yeah. It's like watching sports, but enjoying good story.
Yeah.
Right.
And those sort of I guess childhood and teenage obsessions, I guess, gave me like the blueprint, the launching platform to get so invested in Eorzea, because I approach it very much the same way.
Yeah. All right. So I think that we can kind of get close to wrapping up here. We've almost had a 2-hour show.
Ooh.
Yeah, this 2-hour show is pretty good. That's usually what I'm aiming for. And this is we didn't really have a guideline to go by. We just kind of went with what you guys gave us. You guys gave us some good stuff today. But, Ethys, you said that you were streaming, and Arthas is one of the ones that streams around the same time, which means in the middle of the night you stream.
Yeah, in the middle.
So
in the middle of the night for most of you guys. Yeah.
From what I remember, and I don't know why I remember this, but I don't remember you actually streaming very much. Do you just?
Well, I'm in Australia. So I want you to imagine this. This is the situation I was in like 2 weeks ago. If I came to you in like 1995, right, mm-hmm. and I tried to tell you about Twitch. And do you think you'd be able to do it? Do you think there's any way that you'd be able to be like, yeah, I can definitely do that. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, with my nice little no, I got you, man. I got you. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the situation that most of Australia is in terms of internet. Like 2 gigabyte video 2 weeks ago would have taken me 7 hours to upload. I uploaded one the other day and it took me 3 minutes. So I've just had this massive internet upgrade in the last couple of weeks. I've suddenly got the upload speed where I'm capable of streaming, and it's something I've been wanting to do for the longest time. So I've got a streaming schedule, and that only started last week, but it's already going really great and I love it.
So what's your streaming schedule?
So at the moment, and I'm being
do it
really
at Pacific time. Pacific time. Can you do it?
Yeah. So Pacific time. Let me think. Pacific time at the moment. Last week and this week, I'm doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, midnight Pacific, which is 3 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. GMT. Mm-hmm. It's 7 o'clock at night for me, so it's prime time for me. It's also like right bang on reset on the hour, so that's an easy way for people to work it out. Anyway, like the last couple of weeks, and probably for the next couple of weeks, I'm just doing those 3 streams. I'm going for about 5 hours a night, because although I'm really really loving it, it's fucking exhausting. Like, it's
No,
hard work.
no
You
joke.
guys make it look so easy.
It's rough, man.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Do you have other things going on in your life besides streaming and doing lore?
Not really. Besides
No?
streaming
Okay.
and YouTube, I'm trying to commit to it basically full time at the moment. I'm trying to give myself a couple of months to like give it as good a go as I can.
Yeah. That's
But
one of the
even
only things that's the only way to do it.
yeah, exactly.
And be successful at it. You have to like pretty much give up
You have to
everything.
commit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's on one hand that's what I'm planning to have a go at. On the other hand, like I don't want to burn out in the first couple of weeks. So I'm just forcing myself to ease into it. I'm going to be doing 3 streams next week. And I might try 4 the next week. I might try 5 the week after that. I'm just gonna see where my limits are, because it's kind of like working any other muscle. I feel like streaming is something that becomes easier as time goes on, becomes less exhausting as time goes on, and I'm just gonna let myself proceed naturally. But those of you who do want to check me out, if you're insomniacs, or if you are getting ready for work early in the morning, or if you live on my side of the pond, it's midnight PST, 3 a.m. EST, 8 a.m. GMT on twitch.tv/EthysAsher, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah, you guys should check them out. You also have what you're really known for, which is your YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's my baby.
Yeah, and so all you gotta do is Google Ethys Asher, and I'm pretty sure you'll find
You should
him.
find that, or youtube.com/EthysAsher.
Yeah, that's easy too.
Very straightforward.
So there's nothing too complicated to find this guy. If you care about lore at all, you should be finding this guy. Kind of the main guy, I think, at the moment, public figure for lore in the community side.
Yeah, arguably.
All right, who else?
Arguably.
Who else?
Well, yeah, Anonymous is the fucking man.
Okay, so he's the man.
He's the man. He
doesn't have as
like
much exposure though.
He doesn't like being exposed. He doesn't like being public. He likes sort of hiding away and just like doing a whole bunch of hard work on. So whenever you guys like look up lore on like Gamerscape or anything like that, or on the official forums, most of it in those places is coming from him. So he's a very very good archivist. I have a lot of discussions with him when I get stuck on things. And he's the fucking man. But like I say, he's very I don't know. He's one of those people that isn't super keen on the limelight. But yeah. Okay. Whenever people say, "Oh, Ethys, oh, you're the law man, you're the law master," and all that, I'm like, well, I'm not the only one. Like,
all right.
I'm just the one that has enough of an ego to put my face out everywhere all the time.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah, good way to put it.
Yeah, but that said, I think I do an all right job covering most of it. So.
Yeah, except for you copy things like my pen on my mic.
Yeah, that's right.
Goddamn copycat, man.
Yeah, and your beard. I'm copying your beard right now. I'm working on it.
Well, you have to get.
I have a little bit of trouble. Yeah, that's
the
thing. I've never been able to quite get them. I don't know why.
So like, what happens here is like it gets really like blank right here, but for some reason hair likes to grow in right here, and so it's annoying because I gotta try to shave that little bit, and you know how annoying that is to clean like in between there and try like just clean that up. It's like, how do you do that? I don't know. So I just say screw it. I'll look a little rough.
Right. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. Okay. Done with that. The other thing, of course, you recently joined a pretty cool group of people, I think.
So I've been told.
Yeah. The Dream Team, which I met most of them over there at a fan fest, and they're all awesome people. What brought you into that, man?
What brought me into that?
Yeah, you're just like, I've been on that show 1,000 times. I might as well like make it official.
That's pretty much it. Was that when I told Mel and Haps I was going to be streaming and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, all right, cool." And then like next minute, I'm just part of the Dream Team, and I'm like, "All right." Like I'm a total Twitch scrub, so I don't even know like if they've sent me a thing that like I need to accept or whatever. But it's it's the loose affiliation with with Mr. Happy, with Ms. Tech, with everyone else, Mary and everyone else that's involved in that. It just means that they're under some kind of obligation to carry me. Which suits me fine, so
carry you in some way and make you have some sort of success with all the lazy crap that you don't do anything.
No, I don't do shit, dude.
You lazy asshole. So shout out to those guys too. I think those guys are pretty
absolutely,
cool.
They're amazing. You all know them.
Yeah, everybody knows him in some way. Shout out to Happy and his show over there, State of Realm. Which, how often do you come up on that show?
You see, it started off as like once a month. Now it's more like once a fortnight. And he keeps referring to me as a guest. And I'm like, dude, I'm not.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? Like, I'm here almost as often as you are.
Yeah. That's funny. That's actually, there has been a few shows I've seen him not actually go on. I think there's only been one show that I haven't been on, and that was when I was like, Mary, you're gonna take the wheels and you're gonna do a show for me, and I had him host up a show,
okay.
Threw him in the fire. It was actually kind of interesting to see that happen.
It was actually better than like most of the other shows, wasn't
it? Yeah. Go fuck yourself. I mean, that kind of stuff, you know. Anyways, we need to host somebody here at this. I always give guest privilege on the host here.
All right. Okay.
So I'll let you go ahead and do that.
Let me have a look.
And while you're doing that, I do want to give my shout-outs to a couple of people here. First, Karara for being in the chat, helping us collect questions and everything else, helping us moderate. And, of course, the moderators that are here today. Snorter's definitely here. And then I want to give a shout-out to Blizzana, who helped me kind of get my layout and drew that Moogle that is the MogTalk logo currently. And also, I usually shout out Andre Kane, which I'm going to do anyways because he's an awesome guy who lets us use the intro song that he does. Well, he didn't do it for us, but we just kind of took the song and we were like, hey, well, can I use that for my intro? He's like, yeah, I don't give a shit. Do what you want.
I suppose.
And then shout out to Susan Calloway, who we did her pop remix at the very beginning of the show. And, of course, everyone watching and supporting the show. The biggest thing, I don't care about anything except for people watching the show. If you're like, man, I like MogTalk. I just want to support it in some way. All I want you to do is just turn the show on. Don't care. You don't like it? Turn the show on and you're like, I don't give a shit about lore. Who cares about lore? And just like turn the show on, mute it, walk away. I don't care. That's all that really matters.
Off.
Yeah. So I don't need anything else. Financially, no. I'll make my living. I'll do it. I kill myself every week working 70 hours to do money. So I'm okay. Just, watch the show. But anyways, thank you guys very much for tuning in. We are going to host who at this?
We're going to host Musecast XIV.
Spell it out for me. Don't put it in Skype. Put it in. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I put it in the chat for you. So they do a podcast for the roleplay community, which is great. And they have just started streaming like some main scenario stuff, and I assume they're doing it in like a really sort of roleplay way. Anyway, I'd love to give them some love because I love their show. They're great. Okay. Yes, who we're going to host.
Let's do it. All right, guys.
Let's do it.
Do you have anything else to say before we do our bye?
No, thank you guys very much. Check out my stuff. Check out the rest of Frosty's stuff, obviously. And thanks very much for having me on again. It's always great fun to have some banter. Yeah. Couple of banter-nees.
Maybe we'll make it a monthly thing, man. We'll get you on here once.
Maybe we fucking should.
Yeah. Get breakfast or something,
Ooh.
Okay, anyway.
Breakfast in the morning.
Yeah. Guy, I'm going to do my catchphrase. Are you ready for it?
Oh.
You ready? All right, guys. Remember to always be good, keep cool, and stay frosty.
I get it.
Because it's my name. It's my name. I'm Frosty.
No, I did.
Oh,
thanks, guys.
Jesus. Thanks.